waiting on. Oh, what's going on, everybody? I am Ryan James. Welcome to UPNO Live, Getting Real Edition. Man, this is powerful. We're talking mental health today with Nami from Richland County, the National Association of Mental Illness, Ivory Hall,
Yep.
Antoine Woods,
Yes, sir.
Vincent Hess, and I'm Ryan James. Gosh. So when I wanted to talk about the subject, first of all, mental health has been a subject I've been wanting to talk about since like I started this whole platform, right? I just feel this subject is constantly swept under the rug, especially with us as black men.
Absolutely.
I've been in a profession of corporate, what you want to say, corporate America or whatever you want to call, for years. Where I've had to mask, a lot of my culture and who I am,
Absolutely.
in order to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that, me going to work to make my living, I've had to mask a lot of what I go through in life. So all my personal pains, what I'm going through on the day to day, it's like, you know how they say, leave everything in the car
Mm-hmm.
when you go in there. As a black man, I gotta leave a lot in that car.
We got to be bilingual.
You know,
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
in corporate America,
Uh-huh.
I mean, just in job setting or career setting,
Uh-huh.
college setting, whatever it is that we have to make money or advance in
Yes.
life,
Yes.
you have to be bilingual.
Yes.
I can't talk to you, me and you as
Yeah.
brothers, we can't
Yeah.
talk to each other how we normally talk to each other
Yes.
in that setting. Hi, my name is Antoine Woods. I'm a licensed social worker. How may I help you today?
Yeah.
And I have to, because what it is you have to make them feel comfortable. If
Yes.
you feel uncomfortable and you sound like an ignorant black person,
Yes.
they're going to look for every reason to get rid of you.
When I worked in the prison, we had this unspoken language. And I worked in Marion, and we had a black warden there, investigator. And so we had this thing where we would see each other in the hall. It's, how you doing, Mr. James? But when we would catch each other's sidebar, we'd chop it up like,
For sure,
you
for
know what I
sure.
mean? Catch each other on the sidebar, but then we'd catch each other. How you doing? Sometimes we would but we would know. We would all have that.
Absolutely.
It would be professional though. We wouldn't even be. I wouldn't be. Like after a while, I wouldn't even be salty about it. Like, oh, you act like you want to be like, no. We understand.
For sure.
I had someone tell me one time, you're just fake, right? I feel like that kind of comes out there when you're trying to be professional. You're like, no, there's just a different place and time for that type of behavior, a different,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? When it comes
Exactly.
down to it, like you have your friends and you have your talk,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as far as you need to keep it professional at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, though, you also feel like you're suppressing your true self.
and that never pays when you're suppressing your true self because you don't feel comfortable. You know what I mean? It's like, who wants to feel uncomfortable at their job?
That's when you have closed doors.
I always tell people they always say, man, fake. I said, no, I'm really just being a chameleon in my environment.
You have to.
That's
I said,
exactly right.
I said, I'm not ever being fake with anybody. I said, I just have to do what I have to do to thrive in this environment and just move around. I said, a lot of us don't thrive because I refuse to live. No, take your pride out of it.
Exactly.
You have a family to take care of. You have responsibility. So let pride to the side sometimes, and that's a lot of the issue. It's the trauma thing.
Yes.
And it's crazy that you say trauma. It's like some notes. I took some notes today. And it said, in addition to trauma, black men deal with the constellation of racism-related stressors like discrimination, stereotypes, mass incarcerations, and police brutality. These stressors degrade their emotional and mental well-being to various degrees. So me and him was talking earlier. It's like almost saying, put that book back. It's like, get ready. I get up and get ready to go to work. Let me put about 10 bricks in there, right? Put that on, then go to work with that on. and go through all the BS you got to go through, but put the bricks on and wear that, and then go to work and deal with all the BS with that book bag on.
Yeah.
Cause like them the loaded stressors. So take take all the loaded stressors you already have that you deal with already,
Absolutely.
and then go into that environment that you got to deal with all these things, like these little micro stressors. And that's our day. And it's a lot to unload. When I get off of work sometimes, I'll be like, I got told by a guy one time, he said, I don't know, it was something on maintenance, and I had a maintenance guy, he helped me get the oven. I asked him to get the oven unpacked for me. We needed an oven down in the area, it was a new oven. And I worked with the head of facilities, and we got it done. And the guy just came up to me as they were working on getting the job done, one of the facilities guys. He says, he says, where's that, he said, how's that good personality doing for you now? I said, the guy didn't even know me. And I'm just like, where did that come from? And I guess he figured that the only reason the guy was, the head of facilities was helping me is because I had a good personality. Not because basically I'm a head of a department and I needed this job done.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? He was like, I was kissing his butt and how's that good personality working? I'm just like,
Did you call it out? Tell me you called it out.
Here's the thing. That's the micro stressors.
I know.
It's because some of them it's just like, if I called everyone out,
I know.
I'll be fighting all day.
But calling it out makes you look aggressive. So you go in these situations, and I've done that. Juvenile corrections.
Yeah.
And some of my coworkers can do worse than what I can do. If I call it out, well, you're being aggressive.
Yeah.
I didn't bring you in here to talk about that. I brought you in here for this.
And you hear a lot of times though, like, in big business where it's like, see something, say something, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like a double whammy. If I see something, say something, am I going to appear aggressive?
Only if you're not offended.
Uh-huh.
When you see something, say something.
It's crazy you say that because in a past agency that I worked for, I made it a point not to really speak to anybody unless it has something to do with whatever I'm doing. Because I don't like work drama, I don't like none of that. I don't engage in any gossip or anything. So after a while, there's talks about me like, man, he looks intimidating. There we go with the racial narrative. He looks intimidating. He's got big muscles. He looked like the type of person I swear would shoot up the agency. Like, I kid you not.
Wow.
It irritated me.
Okay.
I had to address it, and I addressed it professionally via email.
Yeah.
Obviously, it made me look aggressive. Nobody responded to the email. Besides, the director had called me in for an appointment at some point, told me to investigate, and do nothing about it.
Yeah.
So after a while with the consistent racial microaggressions that was directed towards me, I went ahead and put in my 30-day, resignation.
Yeah.
And then there was rumors going around that I was asked to resign to be fired. I never had been that disciplined in a job in my life. So it's just like, why is it that there's certain people going out there to disrupt a professional black man's character, especially when they do nothing wrong?
The narrative changes when you're not there to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
I always tell people that once they get you out of that room and out of that building, now it's your word against ours. And if I get more people to support my story, well, then your story's dead in the water.
Absolutely.
And it's with everything, man. It's just everybody else gets the benefit of the doubt. With us, it's proven.
For sure.
Prove it.
You don't get that benefit of the doubt. You have to prove we wronged you. You have to prove it's a proving ground. Everything is a proving ground. It's just, you don't never get that benefit of the doubt. You're right. I'm going to investigate this, and I'm going to handle it. You have to prove it first.
Absolutely.
So,
Goes back to what we were saying about the whole proving, feeling like we have to prove ourselves.
yes,
to be able to
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why
be what we are.
a lot of times,
It's like we're guilty until proven innocent, not innocent.
There you
until
go.
Guilty.
and so a lot of times, so some people like myself, my thing is trying to navigate through this. I'm one of them people that, how can I navigate through this without, like, I'm trying to figure out a way to have the most stress-free life I can.
Absolutely.
So how do we navigate?
Absolutely.
So is it a way to stay a step ahead? So the way I stay a step ahead is it's like overwork it. So trying to prove it, trying to prove myself. So getting in jobs and doing this, and then all of a sudden, then we get told, why are you trying to do all this? Like, we know you don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been coming in on my off days to catch up with paperwork. It had nothing to do with me. It's
Now-
because the system was down.
Exactly. Now, see, one thing I had to learn, because I did that when I was in corrections, I had to set the boundaries when I got into healthcare versus corrections, because I was that person to go in there and work too much and do this and do that. And I said, let me set the boundary now, because if I don't, then they're going to set.
Absolutely.
I have a certain time where I leave every day. And it's like, I'll come in a certain time, but I have a certain time to leave. And sometimes it may not be that designated time that I'm supposed to be out. But I make sure, and I don't let also cloud people wondering what time I'm leaving. I don't let that frustrate. I don't let it get in my brain. I don't let, even though that's happened, like, oh, you're leaving already? Don't care.
Program.
Sure am.
Absolutely.
See you later. And I had to do it enough times where it's like, because at first it was like,
Am I not allowed?
am I not allowed?
What am I
Yeah.
supposed to be
Am I
doing?
not allowed? You know, it's in my head, it's that whole programming thing. I said, but if I don't set the boundaries, and I had to remember, and I never even asked my boss, but I had to remember my boss saying, salary is not about what you work, it's what you do
Yes.
when you're working.
Absolutely.
And once I understood that, I'm like, first off, if I got hours of work to do where I have to it may be time where I may have to leave and come back and do some stuff late at night or stay a certain night or come in super early. If it calls for me to do it, I'm going to do it. And it ain't based on a certain time frame. It's the work I got to do. And so once I learned that, it's just I have to, and that all comes along with the different, because working as a black man working in this setting where I believe it's called the structural racism, and that's where that kind of comes in attack, because we feel, a lot of times people feel like, when we're in these situations, it's structural. It's all targeted to make you feel a certain way. We can't say certain things. It's structural. And we face that a lot. So my best way of looking at that is just I've never been the type of person like, I will never pull the race card. Never.
For sure.
It's because I don't want to be that guy.
For sure. For sure.
I don't want to be that guy. But because I feel that's another part of the mental health part that we use that as a scapegoat.
And I can understand that, but I think what a lot of individuals don't understand is the issues with reversive racism.
Okay.
Whether it's a specific, like, white people that would turn the other cheek in the face of racism, and when you turn the other cheek, instead of doing the right thing, reporting racial microaggression and
Yes.
things like that, you're actually maintaining a system of white supremacy. So I call it what it is. Like whether it's direct racism or aversive racism, I have to call it what it is. A lot of people don't like that.
Correct.
But I have to call. If nobody calls it, who's going to change it?
That's right. That's right.
And that calling it out, say, see something, say
Say
something.
something.
See something, say something.
Absolutely.
I definitely understand that. So what would you guys say, when we talk more about, as far as black men and the things we face on a day-to-day, what's the worst thing that what's the worst thing for you that people don't understand as a black man that we deal with? What's something that you feel that some people don't understand that we deal with every day?
For me, it's more so feelings of invalidation.
Okay.
So if I speak up about my feelings, either I'm complaining,
Yep.
if I'm passionate, and I'm not like necessarily yelling. You guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm being aggressive.
Okay.
So the consistent feelings of invalidation, and I'm going to self-disclose today, has actually caused me to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people think I got PTSD directly from the Army,
Yeah.
but a lot of that comes from system of oppression. Growing up, I went to a Christian school, got bullied, and if I defend myself, I was the one that got in trouble, and so forth. Even like last week, I got stopped by the police, and they had to search my vehicle. I guess they thought I had drugs or I utilized drugs. I never sold drugs a day in my life.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even when I called and I demand to my answers, like why did they stop me?
Yeah.
Why do they want to search my vehicle? Blase, blase.
Yeah.
I never got that answer. So it's just a continuous problem of invalidation for me, even in relationships and even in the school setting.
Yeah.
Crazy part is it's the same.
Yeah.
Nobody hears a lot. People are called bad communicators all their life, but the bad part is you're a bad listener. There's so many bad listeners in this world. When I'm trying to communicate my point, I'm trying to get it across in the manner I'm trying to get it across. My situation was dealing with my son. I lost my son March 29th
Sorry.
at 18 years old. My son committed suicide.
I'm so sorry.
So we deal with systems that don't really help our kids anymore.
Absolutely.
It's everything they do is oppressive, and people want to say, "Oh man, it's just they got everything." I said, "It's not really like that." I said, everything they deal with is more than what we deal with,
So true.
because we give humans that still can't even brush their teeth on a daily basis to shower. We give them little computers in their hands, and their minds are being put.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everything about these young people are being conditioned, and then they look inside. As soon as you show up, it's like, oh, that's why. Look at the parent. Whoa, you haven't even had a conversation with me. You don't know what I've done in my life.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, why do I have to always explain and validate my life to you to get help,
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
to be heard? I remember being at the hospital one time. My son, he had an episode, and he wasn't being violent. He just didn't want to take. It was around COVID, and he didn't want to take that test because he didn't want to be swabbing his nose. And so, you had a young man that didn't look like him being sent to a facility to get help and get treatment. And here go them, well, we can only send him to jail because he's being aggressive.
Wow.
This was at the hospital?
Yes.
Oh.
And so then we had a whole case where they called him a nurse. They tried to get my son for assault to a public official. They let a 300-pound nurse get on his chest. That ended up wasn't a nurse, it was an EMT that they called in to kind of rile up the situation. And my son, what they said, he said he pushed at him, and nobody proved that. But my lawyer proved him to be lying, but nothing was done to him.
Wow.
My son was also the young man, 2020, he was the young man that hit the principal of Madison. That's when our days changed. Everything changed. My son was dragged through the mud at that school by the people. Nobody cared. He suffered traumatic brain injury the day before his ninth birthday. My son was pushed into, we stayed in Indianapolis, Indiana at the time. Not a bad neighborhood, decent area, right by a Catholic school. We used to go play ball. Every day they walked to the same route, they played ball. So one day an older boy decided to push my son in oncoming traffic for a shoot.
Oh my gosh.
His first, everything was, I'll never forget, my son was in a coma for about a week before he woke up one time and he said I was pushed. And that's when I started, hey, in the Marines I was in P and I knew how to investigate things. So nobody ever listened. A kid pushed my son for his shoes. The shoes were never found at the scene because the kid took them. And all they want to take is, they said a lady across the street, 200 yards from my son's situation, and said he was just playing in the street. No, he didn't play in the street. He was with a group of kids, and every one of them children knocked on my door and said, such and such pushed him and that's why his shoes weren't on his feet.
Mm.
He was at the hospital with no shoes on his feet. And y'all can believe the story. They weren't even at the scene. So they wasn't because he got hit by the car. Everything was invalidated. Continually being invalidated.
Yeah.
Going back to that, having to prove, right?
Yeah.
Prove my stance,
Yeah.
prove my side, prove my story, and that's not.
It gets
You know, we're,
exhausting.
we're
I
taught
also-
the opposite.
I also want to add to that system of invalidation. You said you feel like you always have to work harder.
Yeah.
Before we had started the podcast,
Yeah.
I feel like I always have to work harder. That's why I'm in my PhD
Yeah.
program and so forth. Well, the thing is, we feel like we got to work hard to be accepted and to get a piece of that American pie.
Yes.
That one mistakes you make, they magnify that mistake.
Oh,
all
yeah.
the things that you did right, all
Yes.
the things that you did good for the community, for the company,
Yes.
and everything and so forth, they focus on that one thing.
One
He
thing.
did all these wonderful things, but
But I was told so much, like, you know, it was. I remember I had a regional director that would call me in, and it's like, when I worked for Airmark, I was ready to take over running another prison, and he would call me in his office and tell me, yeah, you do this and you pretty much run this operation here, but just because you do good helping, pretty much assisting the operation and being the head go-to here, don't mean you'll be able to run your own operation. And here, now, get this, I've literally ran my own operation. It was just, I had stepped down. So I was just trying to get back in the seat. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Just getting myself back in the position. So I went through a phase where everybody played like amnesia. Like I never was in a position before. And I'm like, wait a minute, you gotta act like I didn't run a facility before. And I'm like, I don't get it. I've been there before. Like I can understand if I never did this. And they were like, well, I like this. And I'm just so, they just kept coming up with excuses to why I was unable. And I'm like, but I'm doing this. I'm like, I'm and I just kept getting told, it was like, never talk about the positives. It was always the negative. And this is me, after a while, they sucked all the energy out of me.
Yes.
I had so much, I was the one that would do anything. Like, I would go in there and be like, I was so, the one to be like, you know, this is the job I want to do for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know, retirement, and it's like, I'll do this, you know what I mean? I'm all over the place. And they took that energy that some companies, but it kind of took that type of theory out of my head about all companies. But some companies, I'm thinking like, companies will love an energetic person like me. But I'm thinking like, they took it out of me. Like all this aspiration and everything I want to do, I'm like, they just took all that motivation and sucked it out of me. It got to a point where he would come in and I would be like, hey, how you doing, all right?
It's more exhausting than
Yeah.
your will to
I'll
find
just
it.
look at him. They'd be like, oh, such come in. I don't care. I don't. He come in. I'm done tap dancing. There's no more tap dancing.
Get burnt
I don't
out.
give a shit about who you are. You coming in. I don't care.
That's a fact.
Like it's and you know, because you've drained all my motivation out of me. And here, this is my thing. This is me trying to be a positive person and make a positive living and defeat this so-called stereotype y'all got.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And get this though. The uniqueness of this is I'm working in a prison facility.
Oh, jeez.
You know what I mean? And like, and this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to literally, you know, on the administrative, I'm like, I am trying to progress on the administrative executive side and set an example. And I'm like, and you guys is telling me, like, at the end of the day, you know what you're making me think? You're telling me you belong over there. Get in the line.
Facts.
You don't belong in here being over stuff and telling people and being in charge and making executive decisions. Really, we think about you, you belong in a line.
But they don't mind giving you a lot of extra work now.
They don't mind that.
Because I've been there. Where it's
They
like,
don't mind
but
that.
here's all the extra work.
Yeah,
you
here's
have
all
to
the
do,
extra
so you
work.
Can prove
We do
yourself
prove
to come out of the
yourself.
line.
Prove yourself.
Basically saying stay in your place.
Yeah.
Stay
They're
in your
saying
place.
it in a different manner, but that's basically what they're saying.
Yes.
I was
It-
telling them before y'all came out, it's a control versus a nurture trajectory. I feel like schools, especially some of the schools here in Mansfield, they control certain kids' trajectory, and then they nurture some.
I agree.
So I see this student, I love him. I don't know why I love him, but I love him. So I'm gonna make sure he goes to the best school I can get him to. I see this student, I don't really like him.
Yeah.
I don't really like what he stands for. I can control this, and I can press his buttons. I can control what he does at my school.
You know, I'm glad you said that because it's my research interest, the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, nationwide, black females are 3 times more likely to be incarcerated and punished, whether suspended, expulsion, etc., than their white peers. Likewise, black males are 2 times more likely to be punished than their white counterparts. Why is that? So when we're looking at policies and procedures, there's a lot of schools that may have done away with the zero tolerance policies, but there's teacher discretion
Yes.
on the policy.
Yes.
If the teacher feel like this student needs to be punished more than another student, there you have the problem with them reinforcing discrimination.
See, sometimes, I done got to the point where I don't even always feel like it's the teacher anymore. We got some people in administrations.
Yeah.
Oh man, and they even the people that they get to work with them, like the nurse. They had a nurse. The ELA lady, I know she worked with the board. She just never was in support of her job was to be in support of the students. She never was in support of the students. She was always in support of the administration. She never actually was there to help them students because, well, she sat with the administration more than she sat with students.
Absolutely.
So in the end, she ended up caring more. Well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, but you don't want to help this child. Well, this is your job. They're here to be helped. Like the week before that whole thing happened with my son at school, kid that didn't look like him was allowed to throw computers and everything. Nobody ever called the police.
They had a talking to with him, try to calm him down.
Yeah, my son didn't do anything. He was cursing. He was allowed to be stalked. And the thing is, I had everything in line. He was allowed to walk and calm himself down. That's literally what he was doing. The principal was allowed to trap him in a room by himself, and then he admitted he took his glasses off and pushed my son. Nothing was done. My son beat those charges, but nothing was done to him.
Right.
But now here, he looks like a pariah every time he goes to the school. And so it's weighing
That's
on him.
crazy.
Yeah.
He's already got that stigma placed on him.
That's crazy.
Everything weighed on him. And it's just you're trying to find ways to correct it. You're trying to find ways to fix it. And all you keep wondering as a parent, how can I fix my kid?
I think it goes back with children. It's not just, and we hear this a lot, the parents, right? It's the parents that need to control their children. It's the parents that need to do this. As a parent of 2 kids, I don't see my children near as much as I would love to see my children. You know what I mean? I rely on teachers to tell me, what are you seeing in the classroom? Partner with me so that we can, like you said, support this child. And that's what it comes down to. How are we supporting them? Because they're children. Their brains don't fully develop until age 27. They don't know how to regulate themselves. They are still learning those great coping skills. You know what I mean? So when it comes down to mental health and really understanding, it's truly a whole country, right? That has to bring these children up. I mean, look at what we were talking about with them not even getting away from the technology. That's the one thing with my daughter. I can see it now, where she's like, "Oh, I'm fat. I'm doing this. I'm that." She's my height and like 40, 50 pounds lighter than I am, and I'm sitting there saying, "No, babe, like you're perfect on spot, but it's this technology. Oh, well, this girl's got this on her, and this, you know what I mean? They're comparing themselves to what society thinks or is telling our children to do, when really it's up to us to be able to support them and direct them. But we all need to be on the same page. Teachers, parents. You know
And that's the thing that a lot of schools are lacking is power sharing within the community. You know, here's the thing, a lot of things they do in the community, whether it's like board of education meetings, like we don't necessarily get invited to those. However, in order to mitigate the issues within the school regarding discrimination and unfair punishment, they need a power share with the community. And when I say the community, the black community.
Yeah.
We need black professionals in there.
Yeah.
Whether it's mental health, therapists, social workers,
Yeah.
doctors, whoever that may be.
Yeah.
To mitigate those issues so they can talk to those kids if they're having mental health issues.
Yeah.
They can talk to the students, the teacher and the school administrators about unfair punishment.
Yeah.
Place an intervention that would be better intertwined for that kid.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we don't do that.
Not at all.
And
Not at all.
I think something that was alarming to me, I was in conversation the other day with one of our volunteers. She's wonderful, Crystal Louise, and she is so sweet. But she was talking about, black community represents 9% in Richland County, but over 30% of our suicides.
Yeah.
That right
It's
there
crazy.
should speak volumes, right? 9% of our community is 30% of our suicides in Richland County. And we've already had over 8 suicides already this year. So when you're thinking about what are we doing to help support them, it starts with our youth. Like you said, it starts with getting all together to be able to provide those support
Correct.
services.
The
And
question,
putting black people
the
in
question
those
I have
organizations.
is what interventions are they utilizing to mitigate suicide amongst black youth?
Yes.
Or are they looking at it as it's just another dead Negro?
Yeah.
The only good Negro is a dead
Dead
Negro. Is that why they're slow to? And I'm not downing any organizations or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But what I'm saying is that why those that are in power are slow to move to change the narrative
Yeah.
about the suicide, to mitigate suicide, not just amongst black kids, but also amongst veterans. Why are we slow
Yeah.
to move towards that?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my issues I brought up this this week, the lack of Mansfield is a big community with certainly more money than Shelby, Crestline.
Absolutely.
Why don't we have a pool?
Yeah.
Why these
Stuff to
kids
keep
don't have
kids out of
a
trouble.
local city pool to swim in?
Very therapeutic.
Indeed.
I
Very
mean, they're
therapeutic.
walking around with hoodies on. They hot. They mad. They angry.
Yes.
Because there's nothing to do. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no pool. I mean, every community is maintaining places for their kids to have childlike activities, but Mansfield isn't. And then, because simple and plain, I feel like they want to fill up Ricky and Mancy and whatever's connected out
I
there,
would agree with that.
instead of giving them something constructive to do.
That's why that North End build is so important.
Mhm.
You know
Yes.
what I mean? That's going to
Yes.
provide.
Yes.
It's going to provide health care
Yes.
because our North End is the community. From what I have heard, even
Yeah.
in our biggest, executive director meetings and everything else, that's where it's needed.
Yeah.
Right? We need to have a place for those children. I mean, we had two deaths.
Yes.
Just like within last month.
Yes.
I mean, and it's suspected to be gang related. But
Exactly.
Is it? They're,
Exactly.
They're children. And
Well, one of the things that the chief, when he was on earlier, we talked about it. He just said, one of the thing that stuck out is he said it seems to me like the price of death is very cheap.
yes.
That's how he worded it. He said it seems to me like the price of death has become very cheap now. And the thing about it is you mix so many different things. When he said that, it's just like he was like back in the day, he was like, I know it's not any better, but people used to be quick to fight. A fist fight is used to be what it's about.
Yep.
If anything, we breaking up fights, fist fights and stuff like that. But now he said it's so easy for somebody to pull the trigger. When I worked in a prison, one thing about it is, I'm gonna tell you one thing about all these shooters in there. It's like you reverse time. They're nothing. In there, these so-called shooters are nothing.
Well, it's easier to shoot to somebody.
Yeah,
right, than
because
actually have to
they
fight it
so-called
out.
so hard and monsters out here, they get in there, the same ones that's getting everything taken from them, slapped around and everything.
I think it honestly goes back to what we talked about, invalidation.
Yes.
Maybe they have been invalidated for so long, they have to take on the task of toxic masculinity
Yeah.
to prove a point.
Yes.
That's a great
Yes.
way to look at it.
Yes.
I wrote something down earlier today. I said, a lot of us and a lot of the issue is nobody really understands, because a lot of it's not going on in our homes, effective communication.
Yes.
I
True.
agree.
True.
We don't know how to effectively communicate I don't want to fight you, or
Yes.
this is an issue, or it's just and that's because, you know, we read so much and you hear so much spare rod, spoiled child, and we don't understand if a lot of people in black communities feel like they just had a discipline, while not explaining why I'm disciplining you. And then we don't realize we taught our kids to go outside of our home in every situation, so to effectively communicate. I'm disciplined because my parents taught me lessons for discipline. So now I'm teaching you a lesson.
Think about who taught them to be their children as disciplined.
Yeah.
Let's go all the way back to that.
Yeah.
They learned that in slavery, right?
Yes.
None of our ancestors got treatment for that. So at some point they think it's normalized. They're gonna beat the child,
Yeah.
not explain nothing. Even if the child needs to communicate or try to express themselves, no, I'm grown. You don't talk to me that
Yeah.
way. You know, you in my house, I'm gonna do whatever. Boom, boom, boom,
Exactly.
boom. Then they grow up, they don't know how to communicate or express themselves.
Exactly. Because the only thing they know is,
Well, and then throw COVID in there, right?
Indeed.
Where our children were isolated
Oh my
for
gosh.
years, right? Trying to teach them and educate themselves through the.
Yes.
That was rough. I mean, I was
COVID.
at the hospital full time. My
Yeah.
kids were at home. Like, I was leaning on my husband to help, and God
That was
bless him.
horrible.
Yeah. COVID
But when
was
you think
crazy.
about
That
it,
was
now they
horrible.
have no escape. Sometimes these children, their only escape is the education system.
And it's like, you know, that seemed like when a lot of dynamics changed in my home. Beginning of 2020, I got sick. They ended up finding a tumor. Was reflectively removed, but it seemed like things went downhill with the mental health of my son.
Mm-hmm.
And so now dad's in the hospital, and it's just mom, and his brother his brother graduated that year. Changed. He went to college. They may not have got along the greatest, but they still was brothers, and
Yeah.
he'd been in the house with his brother since he was a baby.
Yeah.
And so his brother leaving to school, that whole week, that was like the week before whatever happened in Madison happened.
Yeah.
And instead of people effectively doing research and talking and listening,
Yeah.
it's just get this court system involved. No, you have everything.
Yeah.
I've documented and put down everything. I didn't ignore this. I ran into mental health in my home head on.
Yeah.
And for myself, it took a while because simple and plain, I always felt like, well, I want to talk to somebody that looked like me. Well, somebody that looked like me may not always take the route that I need them to take.
What's your
True.
And somebody that looked like me may not always. I love our people, but punctuality is not a driving force.
No.
For sure.
And
Not at
so
all.
when you have all these entities, you know, I had people fighting for my son. But sometimes, you know, you can't be taken seriously if you don't show up and you're not punctual.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now my whole argument looks null and void because look at these unprofessional people you brought with you.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, I didn't come here to be unprofessional. I come here, I was on time. I'm here for you to address my kid. I'm the parent. I'm here on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, I brought these people in because y'all been in here using terms and stuff I don't understand. I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah.
IEP expert.
Yeah.
And that's what they do to these parents.
Yeah.
They trick
Yeah.
these parents in these rooms and they don't always know the terminology because they don't have somebody in that room to help them get their child just
True.
educated.
True.
We just want our kids to have the same education problem. You know, my thing was I grew up in the projects. I grew up in the hood. Once I grew up to thrive in life, I didn't move in the hood.
That's right.
So I moved into a neighborhood to send my kids to better schools. In Indianapolis, my kids were in the Indiana Math and Science Academy. I worked to put my kids in better schools.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you put them in better schools don't mean they won't be traumatized
Yeah.
by people you can't see and address every day.
You know.
It goes back down to needing more education, not just for our students, right?
Yeah.
but for our faculty, our
Yep.
staff, and then holding them to that
Yes.
standard. Because it doesn't matter how much you educate.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be willing to put in the infrastructures to
Yeah.
be able to hold them accountable
Yes.
to deliver that service.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of these kids are angry
Mhm.
because, yes, they are getting in trouble. Yes, sometimes they deserve to be in trouble. But none of these adults are being punished for what they're doing to our children.
And I agree with that. And I think another thing that's missing in the school that a lot of faculty members are missing is that when you're yelling at these kids, you are potentially traumatizing them.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
A lot of these kids have some personal, deep-rooted issues.
Yes,
And you can't just yell at anybody's child. If somebody yelled at your child, you'd be pissed off.
yes,
So why would you yell at this child and talk to him that way?
yes. True.
Like my biggest thing, I coach fifth and sixth grade basketball in Malibu. I do not yell at those kids.
Yeah.
My problem is going around a lot of coaching staffs in Mansfield. I don't care how old these kids are. There's no reason to yell and cuss at these
I agree.
That's
kids.
exactly right.
I played football here, so like from my experience here, 2nd and 7th grade was here. I came here in 10th grade again, and I lived and grew up in Tennessee. So, growing up and playing football in high school in Tennessee, Coach Randy Barnes in Union City, Tennessee, Coach Mac Moore, Coach Barry Duncan. Hey, them men, that was 20-something years ago. I remember them men because they was great men. They never motivated me by cussing at me.
Yeah.
I would have ran through a brick wall for them gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent me to school just how I played, and I appreciated them. So to see people yell at people,
Yeah.
and all your product is producing is mediocrity at its best.
Mhm.
Then you're not doing it right.
Because there ain't no whole bunch of banners and rafters around here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't never try to be critical.
Yeah.
Mansfield don't think us out of the box as far as looking at people to promote and help their kids. They don't look at a lot of things. But if you continue to hire within, which is what they love to say, then you're not looking for the best result for
agree.
those kids.
I agree.
Because especially in athletics, well, hiring within, I'm sorry. It's a lot of greats,
Yeah.
but a lot of them greats didn't put no banners in the rafters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
True.
That's the thing too. As a parent, like, yell at my kid. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Because if they need it, they need it, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
But
it's
at
a
the
lot
same
of ways
time,
to
but
motivate.
how or like what are you
Yeah.
saying? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because she plays travel ball, and one of the coaches told one of her teammates, "You make me want to punch babies." Don't be telling my
Yeah,
kid that.
exactly.
No.
Yeah, not at all.
You're gonna find me over there like,
It-
help me understand.
Yeah, help me understand it.
Why you think that that's okay?
Well, I
You
tell
know?
people,
Because you can yell at them and motivate them.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But it's all about how you're wording things and how you're teaching them in the moment. But
Yeah,
You know?
because it'll cause a kid to shut down.
exactly.
All
I know,
day.
I know when I got yelled at in high school, I was ready to fight a staff member. You see what
Exactly.
I'm saying? Because, like, there was no reason for you to talk to me like that.
Yeah.
Like, I got good grades, I didn't get in trouble, so why
Yeah.
are you yelling at me
Yeah.
and degrading me in front of my peers the way that you're degrading me?
Exactly. And
I'll
that
tell you-
goes into a lot of the I'm about to switch gears.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going into that, and this talks about silent pain. And we're going to go into the big D, depression.
Mm-hmm.
So, depression among black men is an oft-spoken pain that deeply affects the health and quality of life of black people. In fact, the most current review of the evidence of black men depression suggests a prevalence of 5% to 10%. This figure may be much larger as depression is commonly underdiagnosed. Listen, all the men, the James men, me, my grandfather, my I would even say my brother, we have struggled with this so bad. Like, I'm talking about bad before, and it's been a thing where